Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. Enjoy personalized comfort for better sleep night after night. It's the final days of our Black Friday sale. Recharge this season with a bundle of cozy, soothing comfort. Now only $17.99 for our C2 mattress and base, plus free premium delivery. Prices higher in Alaska and Hawaii. Check it out at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com today.
We all know those GLP-1 injections work wonders, but that price tag almost gave me a heart attack when my insurance denied coverage. I was staring at a choice between paying my mortgage or paying for weight loss. Talk about a rock and a hard place. Then I found Elevate Health compounded semaglutide at just $58 with payment plans that don't require a second mortgage. Same medication, same results, but a price that real folks can actually afford. Visit joinelevate.com today. That's JOINELEVATE.com. Your wallet will be as happy as your waistline. This medication is not FDA approved.
It's Sunday, June 23rd, and this is Doing the Thing. I'm Erin Marlow from It's a Fandom Thing, and I'm here with Wizard Radio Station's Ananya Goyal. Hey. And Nathan Eckersley.
Hello.
Hello. To talk about everything happening in our worlds this week. How are you two?
Yeah, very good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And how are you?
Doing good as well.
Good.
Doing good. It's pretty hot out there today, though.
Yeah, it's hot. I'm in Colorado, so it's sweltering hot. I'm not a summer person, so it's not my time of year. But yeah, I'm anxious for fall, which is a long way away. But I'm happy to have you both here. And also, if you're listening live on Wizard Radio Station, where we do the thing live every Sunday from 8 p.m. UK time, you can get involved by contacting us via Twitter or Instagram. You can DM us. Our ats are Wiz Radio, that's WIZRADIO. Or you can text us at no extra cost, only standard network rates apply at 078-071-83538. You can also email us at station@wizradio.com. Okay, so first up, and I'm not as familiar with this huge festival. I mean, I know of the festival, but I've never been to it. But Glastonbury is next weekend. Are both of you excited about this? Because it's called the mother of all festivals, and this lineup includes Dua Lipa, Coldplay, Cyndi Lauper, which is from my youth, and K-pop sensation 17. So are either one of you excited about this?
I'm not the world's biggest concert goer, but I quite like watching some of the concerts on TV. I've never been to Glastonbury. I know a couple of people who have and said they've enjoyed it quite a bit. And there's one of the nice things about Glastonbury is there's always a few surprises, or some of the headliners in particular tend to just bring out a special guest who's not been on any billing, and it's kind of the moment of the concert. So I think in some ways that's what makes Glastonbury quite special. But no, I think it seems like quite a good lineup, quite interesting and varied. Quite excited to see Coldplay on there. I'm a big Coldplay fan. So I'd be interested to see what their surprise is, because Chris Martin usually has something up his sleeve.
Oh, cool. I don't know as much about this festival. I know a lot about festivals that go on in the United States. There's this documentary right now on Paramount Plus all about the Lollapalooza and all of that stuff and the creation of that. But yeah, and this was kind of an inspiration, this festival was kind of an inspiration of that. So Ananya, are you excited about this? Is this a cool lineup for you? Do you wish you were going, or are you going?
I am not, unfortunately, because I've been aware of the festival since I was back in India, but then I never knew that it was this huge and it was like the mother of all festivals. So when I got to the UK, I think somewhere in April saw that they released the lineup, and I realized that they're just not selling tickets anymore. Everything's sold out, gone. So I was pretty disappointed about that. I really want to go, but I've not gotten the chance yet. Although the lineup seems really interesting to me, I think Dua Lipa has a great on-stage presence, so that is something I do want to experience in person, as well as Coldplay, because I've just seen the clips of the shows and they're beautiful. They look like it's like an outworldly experience. I'm sure, like even as a part of a festival, they would be able to create something like that. So I think it would be such a privilege to go if anybody is, but I personally am not, which I'm just so sad about.
Well, and this also has like a K-pop, and I'm not as up on K-pop, but I have a lot of friends that really love K-pop, and that's kind of like I think that's been something that's kind of integrated into pop culture and music for a long time. But it seems like maybe this is a sign that it really is dominant. Um, do you agree with that? That you think that this might be a sign that it is dominating, Nathan?
I mean, I've not heard too much K-pop, but it seems to be this huge phenomenon at the moment. You've got these K-pop bands who they're almost like springing up from nowhere. They go from I've not heard anything to the following week they're just everywhere constantly, and I don't know, they seem to get huge followings almost overnight. And I don't really know what the kind of huge draw is or attraction to them. As I said, I'm not the world's biggest K-pop fan, but there's clearly something there. There's obviously a demand for them, and I guess that's why there is perhaps a call to have them included in things like Glastonbury, or we've had the Isle of Wight Festival in the UK this weekend as well. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'd be interested to hear what you two think about it, because as I say, they do just seem to be these phenomena that just appear from nowhere, and then we kind of move on to the next thing. It goes from one band to another to another.
Yeah, it seems almost like it kind of reminds me of boy bands and girl groups from like the 90s and early 2000s in a way where it was like there were so many being produced and they just kept coming and coming and coming. And that's kind of what it reminds me of. Like this one, 17, I'd never heard of that before this. I'd never heard of them. I've heard of other ones, but this one I hadn't. And so I don't know. Do you agree with that, Ananya?
For sure, I think it's such a huge, it's making waves. I mean, I've not been personally into it, but I've seen people even back in India, people have gotten so inspired that their India is creating its own K-pop group or things like that. And so there was this one Coldplay documentary that was released in the cinemas. And this was around the time that Coldplay released their song with BTS. So it was like a concert film or something. And so I went to watch that back in my hometown. And people next to me asked if I was here for the army. And I was really confused for a second because I'm like, army? Then I realized they're talking about the BTS army, and everybody, pretty much 80% of the audience there. And this includes people from ages younger than me to people who were in like their 40s. And they were in there solely for BTS. So I'd like to think it's huge, because if something is that big, even in a country like India, which is not predominantly, listening to Western music, then I think they've got this huge chokehold on the world. And if you saw recently, a member of BTS came back after serving in the military. And so everybody was just like celebrating that. It was all over my Instagram. So I think it's pretty dominating in today's time.
Definitely. And I think there's also quite a significant cultural impact with K-pop as well, because as I say, BTS is kind of the only one I'd heard of, and that was only through their song "My Universe" with Coldplay, which it's a great song. It's I think it's on my Apple Music playlist at somewhere. So, it's a great song, but at the same time, there's a huge cultural and in some ways economic impact with K-pop, because one example that springs to mind is that a few months ago when the president of South Korea was on a state visit to the UK, one of the brilliant things about the state visits is that the delegation of the visiting country comes and has a huge white tie state banquet at Buckingham Palace hosted by the King and Queen. And some of those invited to the state banquet from the Korean delegation were members of the band Blackpink, and they were invited as kind of in recognition of their huge impact on the K-pop scene, the huge cultural impact. Apparently, they have quite a big following in the UK, and as a consequence of that, the following day, they were all awarded MBE awards, kind of honorary MBE awards in recognition to their contribution to the K-pop and British music industry. And so, as you say, there's clearly huge impact. There's a huge following there, but I suppose even though it is such a huge following, maybe it's kind of a niche in some ways. It's almost like huge subsections are into it, whilst others just have absolutely no idea. I'm probably in the latter on that one.
Yeah, and I think that's the case with, as someone who covers a lot of fandom and stuff like that, I think that's the case with a lot of things like that, is you'll find that, like, yes, a lot of people know about it, but as far as like the really, really like the fans that will buy all the merch, the fans that will go anywhere, the fans that call themselves, like for this instance, the Army, all of that is more niche. It's more like this, this group they have their own name for themselves, and they have their own little infighting and their own little, groups and cliques within that. And I think that's what happens with a lot of things that become very popular, is they find like this huge, huge fan base, and then that fan base sometimes can break off into smaller little segments. And I think that's kind of what happens. I mean, even with huge stuff like Star Wars and stuff like that, even, I think you can find that those even have their smaller little segments too. So yeah, I mean, the ones that I've been watching since like the 70s, that kind of stuff. So yeah. And I know that, like, I know, Nathan, this might not be exactly what you dream up, because you said you're not a concert person. So I'll start with you then, Ananya. If you were to like design then like your perfect festival, like the perfect concert, what would be your dream lineup for that?
That's a very nice question, actually. So for me, I think I would have people from different genres. And if you've heard of Jacob Collier, he does these concerts where he includes everybody from the audience. It's a very interactive kind of a concert. He will have people harmonizing. So I will definitely have him. And I've been wanting to see Billie Eilish live in concert for the longest time. I'd have her. I would have Hosier. I would have Vance Joy. Coldplay, definitely. And if I'm being idealistic here, I'd probably get back One Direction to do some like old songs together. If I am talking about a dream lineup, so I would definitely have One Direction on there. I think for me, that was the time where I felt a part of something as huge as nowadays BTS or like K-pop fandoms are. That I feel like Directioners gave me that kind of a vibe. And personally, when I became a fan, I could see what the hype was about. So them definitely. As well as SZA. Yeah, I love her music.
That's an awesome lineup, and lots of like different, like you said, different genres. I think that's great. That's awesome. And then Nathan, I know you're not a concert person, but I'm assuming Coldplay would be in this lineup because you've already mentioned how you.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a very varied lineup there. So a few things to think about. Definitely Coldplay. Don't mind a bit of Hosier as well. Really into Blossoms at the moment. So that for me, they're quite a local band who've really taken off. So I'm based near Manchester. They're from a town nearby called Stockport, where I went to school. So they formed in the Blossoms pub, which I used to pass on my way to school every morning. So they're really good. They feature quite heavily in my music playlist. In fact, I think they've got a new album out in a few months' time, which is very exciting. As well as that, I'm going to have to out myself here and say that I'm quite a big Ed Sheeran fan. So I'd probably have to have Ed Sheeran in there.
Like how you said that, like, like, okay, this might be one that might throw you off. But...
Yeah, it's a conversation starter.
Yeah. And music is actually my number one love of all mediums, and I love concerts. And I'm actually going to go see the Pixies next weekend. Oh, wow. And that's like a dream. I haven't seen the Pixies ever in concert. And so that would definitely be there. But Depeche Mode is like my all-time favorite band. They're like my heart and soul. So they'd be there. But then I'd also want to put in like Bruce Springsteen, because Bruce Springsteen is honestly like a spiritual experience. And even John Mellencamp. I'd love to put New Order in there. And that would be kind of my dream. I would love, this couldn't happen because Joel Strummer has sadly passed, but I would love to have the Clash there. So this is like fantasy dream lineup. It's like a bit of a fantasy there because I know that can't happen, but that would still be like an absolute dream. And, you know, I saw Prince when he was alive in concert and he was fantastic. So that would be another one that would be like a dream to bring back as well. Yeah. So yeah.
If we are doing dream concerts, I would have loved to have seen David Bowie.
Oh my, yes, that too. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yes. Yes, sure. I'm so jealous of the people that got to see David Bowie when David Bowie was touring with Nine Inch Nails, because Nine Inch Nails are great in concert too, and so is Jane's Addiction. But yeah, David Bowie would have been, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm very, very, very jealous of all those people that got to see David Bowie in concert. So yeah, definitely.
I love how these have turned into actual literal dream lineups.
It's true, rising people from dead.
Yeah.
Join us in our concert. It's very true. Well, that was an awesome lineup. I think if we could combine all of those, it'd be the perfect festival. So yeah. So we're going to go ahead though and take a quick break, and then we'll be back with more of Doing the Thing.
Welcome back. So we opened the show by talking about music, our dream concerts, and all things. We're going to go with a complete change of pace now and look at something which has been dominating newspapers, front pages, social media feeds for the last few months, if not over a year, which is the advent of artificial intelligence. Because there's been a number of recent developments, such as McDonald's AI misinterpreting orders that were placed on their e-terminals to the holiday website, booking.com, warning of up to a 900% increase in scams generated by AI bots. And just last week, we had Apple at their WWDC event, which announces all their new software packages, announcing the integration of AI, which is Apple intelligence and definitely not artificial intelligence, from Tim Cook. And that's going to be integrated into all our iPhones and iPads and Macs, with Elon Musk really kicking off about OpenAI's ChatGPT being integrated into the main software. So I'm going to just open it up to Erin first. Erin, is AI just some overhyped, flash in the pan, quick trend, or is it actually something that's here to stay and is just going to revolutionize our world?
Well, AI terrifies me. I'm just going to say that up front. It really does in a lot of respects. I think some of this stuff is kind of amusing, like the McDonald's where people were like ordering chicken nuggets and it took it like 2,000 chicken nuggets or something, you know. But then there's stuff about it, like people using it for fake outs, and people are getting a little bit better at it. So I don't know if it's like something that is not going, I don't know if it's overhyped. I don't think it's necessarily at the place yet where we'll replace everything. But I do have like an instance, actually, we were recording my podcast. We do an episode every Wednesday that comes out talking about pop culture and fandom news. And one of my panelists said they were excited about this new Dracula movie that was coming out with Keanu Reeves and Jenna Ortega. And I'm like, I have not even heard of this. And it turned out it was an AI generated trailer. And so she was convinced that there was a Dracula movie coming out. And so that's kind of scary that it could be that well done that people are buying what they're seeing kind of thing. So that's what scares me about it. But I don't think we're at that point yet where we all have to worry that all of our jobs are going to go away. But I do think I mean, of course, because it doesn't have the human element to it, really, no matter what it's training on, it doesn't have the humanity to it yet. So I'm very mixed on whether or not I think it's overhyped, because there's parts of it that scare me in the entertainment world and just in the world in general. Like that. She was so convinced, and we had to look it up and kind of go, okay, this is an AI trailer, so this is not real. So that's stuff that scares me. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't heard about the Dracula example, but it shows just how quickly AI is developing, and it's such a rapid pace. If you think back to kind of where we were this time last year, when people were kind of only just discovering ChatGPT, there was software like Midjourney that had started generating images, but the people in them had 3 legs and 7 fingers on their hands. So, from going there to 12 months, creating entire film trailers for films that just didn't exist, and it's just a prompt. As you say, it can be terrifying, but at the same time, there's a lot of potential there, I think. What do you think, Anaya?
Well, I definitely agree on the being scared of it part, because there are so many deep fake videos that come out of people just doing whatever, and it's very hard to tell them apart nowadays. Because even if we look at AI a year ago today, those videos which are AI generated were very easy to tell apart that this is clearly not real. But nowadays they've gotten so good with it. So I definitely do not think that it's a passing trend, because it does essentially automate a lot of daily tasks. Like, you can ask ChatGPT to do anything and everything for you. It'll create routines for you. It can write stories for you. For a lot of people, it's essentially doing their work for them. So, in that sense, I think it's huge, the potential it has to do things. But again, in its initial testing development phase, for if you've heard of the Google AI example, I saw some images where somebody asked it if eating rocks is good for you, and the AI told them that having a couple of rocks a day can be very beneficial for your health. So if it's stuff like that, then I think it's manageable, to say the least. But then if you're looking at long-term benefits, I think for us as human beings, it's better to adapt to it rather than just, start taking it as a threat or as something we need to be opposed to.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I'm not sure I would advise eating rocks as having many health benefits, but I mean, that is one of the issues actually that we are facing with AI, the fact that we can't actually verify without doing our own homework where this information is coming from. So one example I remember actually from towards the tail end of last year was in the UK, a case of plagiarism at a university. There was a student who'd written a history essay, and it's been submitted, and it was kind of as universities were only just starting to pick up on maybe students might be using ChatGPT to write their essays or do the assignments, things like that. And in particular, there was the academic was reading it and thought, this is a good essay. That's strange. I don't recognize that reference that students put in the essay. And and anyone who's been through university knows that the academics who actually go through the references are very few and far between. So I guess for this particular student, it was just an unfortunate bad luck that they had a lecturer who did do that. So on checking the reference, it turns out that source never existed. There was no person with that name, and that book never existed in that particular field. And then there was one other slip, which was that it had kind of gone the other way with one of the references, in that the source that had been generated by the AI was so obscure and niche that the students would have had to traveled halfway across the country to go to a library to access the one and only copy of it. So, I suppose the worry is that if we are using this as a kind of data gathering exercise, we have to be sure about where our sources are for it, how we can verify the information that the AI is being given. Because, whilst this isn't artificial intelligence, it's also machine learning. It's learning from us, it's learning from our prompts, it's learning from the information we give it. It's only as good as the information it is given. I suppose in some ways that's kind of like humans, isn't it? What do you think, Erin?
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. That's very true. And it actually makes me think there was another thing that came out today, or I saw it on Twitter today, where someone was listing like a biography or something about Natalie Portman, and it was generated through AI. And what they took was a skit that Natalie Portman had done, like a fake song on Saturday Night Live, and they took those words as like that was who Natalie Portman was. And so they like were saying that like she had a drug problem and she did all these things. And so it is this weird thing where, because AI can't yet differentiate between facts and not facts. So since you have it like drawing from everything out there and from what other people have written too, it's very easy, I think, to do like those huge fakes or to not know what it's talking about. And that whole thing with like plagiarism, and I know that's a big worry now in school and academics, is people just plagiarizing things, and there's like new rules about it and stuff, because it's so easy. You could just put in a prompt and it'll return something. And if you're not checking that, it could be something, like you said, so like that's not based in anything, or it's based in something that there was no way you could even access that or know that. So I think it is at that point where it still needs that human checkpoint. You still need that checkpoint, and you still need to discern that what you are getting from this might not be factual. And I think that's also where some of the issues could come up, because some people might just, like with that rock thing, that's hilarious. But at the same time, with the way information is now, there could be people out there that could take that and go, oh, you know what? I bet you this is actually true. And this is that hidden secret that we don't know, that this will keep us healthier for longer, or this will prevent disease or something like that. So that's why it's so important to somehow get it ingrained in people's minds that you have to double check everything and not believe everything. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Ananya, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. And as somebody who's currently in university, I am extremely well aware of how wrong AI can be. It generates its own references. So I myself would never trust it to find data or gather research. So I think that element of the whole writing process, it's still very much humanized. And also, I think whenever AI writes something, there's a very obvious call it a style of writing, or it reflects that it's been generated via AI. And I think since the increased use of ChatGPT, even professors now can very well, catch it at some point that, okay, this is not entirely human written. So the ideal way is to kind of find a balance between letting it help you, but also not letting it consume your work. So what my university does is it asks us to acknowledge the use of generative AI if you've used it to guide your writing or maybe take some help. But we're not, supposed to, or it's not even feasible to ask it to search resources for you, because more often than not, it will make stuff up. And even if, let's say, the generic information is correct, I do not think that it can write quite the way where it will kind of incorporate stuff that's been written in a good research paper and stuff you would make up on your own. So that process is still very much humanized, but it is becoming a big problem in schools nowadays.
Yeah, it really is. And I suppose we've seen it from the academic perspective, and how it's absolutely vital, particularly over the last few years, how important it is that we always check our sources, check for mistakes or slip-ups in the information, constantly fact-checking everything we're reading. But at the same time, I suppose you could go the other way with this, in the sense that, because AI is machine learning, it's constantly learning, evolving. I suppose just like a human, when we learn by making mistakes, but it's how we correct those mistakes that we become better at whatever we do. I suppose you do run the risk of what happens if the AI does make a mistake at one point because of the information it's being fed, but yet it doesn't learn how to correct that mistake. And I suppose, without wishing to get too doom and gloom about it, that was kind of the plot of Terminator, wasn't it? The AI was kind of taking over, wasn't it? Because it hadn't been taught to be limited.
Yeah, you see that meme now everywhere where, did nobody watch Terminator? About what it was warning about. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it gets dangerous. Yeah. Sorry.
No, go.
No,
go
I was just saying, I guess it just gets dangerous where people just kind of lose that sense of sight that this is, at the end of the day, technology and not another person. Because I see that people start substituting this for human interaction. People are looking for girlfriends in the form of AI. And there was even this one news report where somebody married an AI-generated boyfriend. I just do not see how that works out.
No.
The divorce, can you imagine? A prenup.
Yeah, I'm sure some lawyer somewhere is having an absolute field day with that scenario. But sticking with the theme of technology, I want to move on to another technology that is very, very widely used, which is TikTok. Now, TikTok's kind of everywhere. It's blown up over the last few years, and it was revealed that TikTok has confirmed that it's offered the United States government a kill switch, national security concerns that many members of Congress and senators had expressed with relation to TikTok's links to the Chinese government, fears of free speech, where data is going. Now, on my radio show, on Wizard Radio Station, I've been very clear in my view that I think TikTok should be banned. I think it is something of a security risk, and its entire purpose, its being, is to kind of be a great disruptor within society. Negative and just our life online. So what do you think? Do you think TikTok will be banned later this year following the US presidential election, however that goes? And I suppose maybe as a follow-up, should it be banned? Well, seeing as you are in the United States, Erin, I think I'll hand over to you first.
I don't think it should be banned. So I'm on the total opposite side from you, I guess, on that. I do think it probably will. And I think what people aren't realizing is this is not a right or left side issue. Everybody's kind of come together, even though they use the platform, the hypocrisy, they all use the platform. So it's not like they don't use the platform. I think a big reason in the US that, I think they're using this guise of national security, honestly, because there's so much stuff that Facebook and Twitter pose threats of, just the same as TikTok, if not worse. And they don't do stuff about that, really. I mean, Facebook had such an influence over the 2016 election and everything. And so I think that's just kind of a cover-up, honestly, where the US wanted to be able to make more money off of this. It's all capitalism. And it's also, I think, the fact that there's a lot of stuff that isn't getting reported on other social media platforms, but it's getting reported on TikTok. And I don't think the US government likes that, frankly. And I also think it's sad because there are so many independent creators who are going to lose a huge stream of income if this happens. And I'm a pessimist, and I think this is going to happen for sure. I think it's definitely going to happen. I think it will probably be something that'll be an election promise or something, although that's also a way that you will lose a lot of the young voters. So that's kind of where I'm kind of iffy on, but I do think it'll probably happen, sadly, because I don't think it should be banned. So, but I do think it's going to happen.
Okay, Ananya, what do you think?
So, I do think US is a huge market for TikTok, and it does make things accessible, you know. We're closer to creators, people generate a lot of revenue through it. And I don't know about whether it would be, but I think considering a data breach, it probably should. Back in India, we have TikTok banned, and at the time, India was pretty much the biggest user of TikTok, and so I get that, you know, it disrupts things, the ban. That was due to troubled relationships between India and China at the time, and yes, it has its consequences. But I also think that people find the next best thing. For people find a substitute because right now we're really into Instagram Reels, and all of the creators have kind of come up into that, and now that's their revenue generation point. So it's not like the losing out on that technology will make us suffer to the point where people now the creators do not have their jobs anymore. But uh, yeah, I mean, it probably then should be if it's a matter of a data breach, then yeah.
Yeah, and the issue around data is kind of the central focus around this entire conversation with TikTok, because I think particularly post 2016, where, as you were saying, Erin, about the role of Facebook within the US presidential election, there's greater onus on tech platforms now, and more regulation and legislation forcing these tech companies to be more transparent about where the data is kept, what the data is used for, and where, most crucially, where it's being sent. The problem with TikTok is that they're not playing by that transparency. Then they say that there's all the data is stored locally. It's on local servers. The data, if you're an American user, it stays in the US. If you're a British user, it stays in the UK. French stays in France, etc. But what happens where that data goes from those servers is unclear. And I suppose the concern is that actually from there, yes, it's being stored locally, but ultimately there are concerns about a back channel towards China. And then there's issues around free speech and regulation. So maybe I think there is a strong case to be made. And I suppose the other point I would argue in favor of banning TikTok is the fact that TikTok itself is banned in China. They have their own more sanitized, more educational version of TikTok called Douyin that operates in China. TikTok is for the rest of the world. So it really makes you wonder that if a Chinese social media app is banned in China, why is that the case? And if it's not good enough for China, why is it good for the rest of us? Well, what do you think, Anaya? I know you're shaking your head at that.
Yeah, so I did not know about this actually, and now that you say this, I'm really starting to wonder if it's their own app, why is it banned in their own country? So I mean, makes me just lean in towards the favor of the ban, honestly.
Yeah, Erin, what do you think?
I'm still not in favor of the ban. I'm not going to be convinced of this because I think there's a lot more going on with this. I think, yes, I understand the questioning of if it's your app, why are you banning it? I think it's also because there's a lot of stuff in that country that is banned where they don't want people to have access to certain information, and I think that's probably part of why it is. So I mean, I get the concerns. I think it just bothers me that it's just like this seems to be the one thing people are going after, when the same kind of stuff like now with Twitter taking away, and I don't call it the letter, but when Twitter taking away the fact that people can see who likes stuff or what your likes are, that being taken away when you've got an election coming up is very scary and troubling. And so it's like people don't seem to be as concerned about that, or like all the stuff that has happened on Twitter. And everybody's just focusing on TikTok, and it feels like there's something else behind it. And so that's why it's hard for me to be like, yeah, go after TikTok, when it feels like there's these other social media platforms that feel more dangerous to me than TikTok. And I'm not saying TikTok doesn't have its problems, because it has a lot of problems. All social media platforms do. But it just feels a little bit off-putting to me. So.
Yep. Well, look, I could talk about this all day. It's an absolutely fascinating topic, as is AI. But for now, Ananya, Erin, thank you very much. But don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more Doing the Thing right after this.
Welcome back to Doing the Thing. So we're going to turn to something a little bit lighter, although I think there could be heavy aspects to it. But this is a little bit lighter than what we were talking about during the last segment. So boxer Anthony Joshua recently said that he wouldn't want his son to take up boxing, like he'd want his son to be an accountant. And this kind of brings us to thinking, is fame all it's cracked up to be? Should more people be desiring a so-called normal life, or should people be wanting that fame that, like influencers chase and everything like that? So what do you think about this, Ananya?
I think that fame has become more easily accessible nowadays. Like, I think maybe it's through TikTok or Instagram or whatever, as and when people become influencers, they do get a taste of what fame would be like. And I do agree that it's not easy to handle and easy to manage. So when you look at all of these famous people, they do kind of talk about how they would want a more normal life. But I don't know if it's something more people should be desiring. I don't quite agree to that. I mean, what do you think?
Nathan, do you have thoughts on it?
Yeah.
I have lots of.
Yeah, I mean, as Ananya was saying, and kind of as we were talking about before the break, TikTok and other social media platforms can kind of make celebrities just overnight. All it takes is a person with an idea, a smartphone, and a couple of videos that go viral, and then that's it. They're kind of made then. And one of the perks with fame and why people pursue fame is that kind of the perks that are associated with it. I mean, yes, you get the recognition, people want to take selfies with you on the street, but it's also the financial benefits. If you're famous, if you're a singer, you have record deals. If you want to be an actor, you get opportunities to perform on the West End, on Broadway, go to films, TV. So there's all sorts of opportunities and kind of the wealth as well that comes with it. I suppose in some ways, and I guess there's all sorts of discussions about what types of fame people are in pursuit of. I guess maybe that's a different question as well. What kind of fame do people actually want? Do they want the fame of being able to be recognized for their impact on the world, or do they just want fame for the sake of being recognized in the street or getting the photo in the Daily Mail or something?
Yeah, I think you saw a lot here in the U.S. when the actors' strike happened and the Writers Guild strike and all of that, and you couldn't have people couldn't attend premieres. Of course, they weren't allowed to, and so a lot of studios turned to influencers and had them go. And a lot of people, including myself, complained about that because that is, to me, considered you're crossing a picket line and you're basically saying your needs and wants don't matter because here I am and I'm getting some fame. And the issue comes to play, and I've heard a lot of journalists complain about this too, when these influencers go and they interview people and they do all this stuff, is they're kind of doing it to get this fame, to get this attention, to get the money. I think that's a big thing, is the money. And also being the most popular person. I think it all goes back to that too. But they don't understand the skill to interviewing people, because there is a skill to it. It's not just, asking some stupid question, excuse me, but I think a lot of people that are influencers sometimes are asking really silly questions, and there's a skill to it. And I think it kind of demeans legitimate journalism and people that have gone to school for it, or people that are actually naturally gifted at it, or something like that. It's just kind of, that's a pet peeve of mine. And so I think what we did is we got to this point in society, and I think social media is a big reason this happened, where everybody now wants to have fame, and everybody wants attention, and everybody wants to get that viral video. And a lot of times there's nothing behind that. And I think it can be kind of like a drug and kind of addicting for people. And then you have people that are like artists, and they get into that field to be artists and they don't want the fame. And so it's this weird thing of like influencers are chasing the fame, and then artists are like don't want the fame, but they want to be successful. So it's this weird kind of, I don't know, kind of almost like a seesaw kind of effect, or like a, I don't know if everybody agrees with that, but that's kind of the way it feels to me. Is it's like you've got the not legitimate fame, I don't want to call it legitimate fame, but the chasing fame, and then the fame that just so happens to happen for people if they get really successful. Do you agree with that, Ananya?
Yeah, I completely agree because nowadays I think some people out there, influencers maybe, they get famous for nothing, or they want to get famous for nothing compared to people who actually get famous for the legitimate skills they have or talent they have. Like we have a couple of these influencers that I've seen a lot on Instagram that are just friends with famous people, and they're famous for that. So now everybody wants to know what these people are up to, so they're going to follow that one guy and kind of just have pictures with them. And it really kind of makes you question the worth or the value of fame. Like, okay, are we just giving it away to anybody and everybody now? Because what does this person who we have made famous actually bring to the table? And so I think in that case, the boxer that we were talking about initially, who does not want his son to get into boxing or famous, maybe it could just be because he doesn't want him to become famous for just being his son, or for that whole nepotism factor to come into it. And I agree with that line of thinking that nowadays we're making people famous for nothing, who then do not value that fame enough or use it correctly. Because fame also means that you have a lot of power to influence the masses, and some people really misuse it. So I think that's why it's something that we need to, I guess, think about more.
Yeah, or they don't use it at all. Like they have that power to help the world and they don't use it. I think that's the other thing that comes into play too. But yeah, definitely the nepotism is the other huge thing that I know is a huge conversation here. So yeah, so Nathan, do you anything else you want to add on that? Or
Yeah, I think in particular with Anthony Joshua's case, boxing, particularly over the last few years, and kind of with this advent of social media, it's become so much more commercialized. I mean, it was always a very commercialized profession and commercialized sport, but in recent years, I think so much of the focus when we look at boxing or see coverage of it or see us on social media feeds, kind of the fight itself has become more of a pretext for who's going to be there. And if we take one of Anthony Joshua's recent fights as well, just as an example, that was done in Saudi Arabia. So that was obviously a huge PR move for the Saudi Arabian government. It was a good opportunity for them to get some good PR out there, to get some famous faces there. And it was more about who was going to be on the front row. So there was like Conor McGregor sat next to Cristiano Ronaldo, who was sat next to a few other famous names which escape me at the moment. But it was more about who is there rather than the fight itself. So maybe from that perspective, Anthony Joshua was thinking, actually, kind of the heart and soul of my sport has been taken away in favor of this more commercial aspect. I mean, we're starting to see it now with at the moment we've got the Euros on with the football tournament. All the adverts around that are focused on people rather than brands. Influencers are using it as a vehicle to promote themselves as well. They're being sponsored to go and do things, and maybe we'll see it at the Olympics in Paris in a few months' time as well.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think that can be said for a lot of fields, like acting too, and I think that's been the case up and down. Like I don't think it's a good documentary, but I recently watched the documentary Brats, all about the Brat Pack, and that was kind of said then was that focusing on that and having a name took away from the artistry of it. And that can happen a lot with fame in general. And I know, like, last night, Tom Cruise was at a Taylor Swift concert. And so the whole focus, all the videos you're seeing are of Tom Cruise and people saying, oh, he doesn't know the words to this song, or look at him dancing to this song, or, oh my gosh, I'm freaking out because he knows all the words to this song. So instead of, like, even though Taylor Swift is huge, so it's not like it's hurting her brand. I think it's helping her brand, but it is that same kind of thing of, oh, look who showed up at this concert. And, like one of the last movie stars we have around is here at a concert, and isn't that cool? And let's just follow him. So I do agree with that. I think it's this whole thing of fame above the actual product, like fame gets lost in it. And people also forget that these are human beings and people just think of them as a product. And I think that's probably and possibly, I think, the most dangerous part of all of this is the fact that people forget about the human being behind that. And that's when dangerous things can happen. And that's when, like, people don't get to live their own lives or anything like that, that kind of thing. So, and you see that a lot in fandom, where people forget and they feel like they own the actors and they can tell them what to do, or they actually know the actors when they don't really know them at all. So, yeah. Well, this has been a great conversation, but this is all we have the time on Doing the Thing today. But thank you, Ananya and Nathan, and just let everybody know where they can find you. I'll start with you, Ananya.
So I'm on at 1 p.m. every Saturday on ZARD Radio, so you're going to find me there. I'm also on Instagram at @Ananya, that is EYYNANYA. So yeah, you can find me there.
Awesome. And Nathan, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on ZARD Radio Station on Sundays 3 to 4 p.m. UK time, and on Twitter/X, or whatever Elon Musk is calling it this week, @Nats_Eck.
And this is Erin, and you can find my podcast. It's a Fandom Thing, where we talk about all of the stuff we talked about today, pretty much, and a bunch of other things. And you can follow us on all social media platforms at It's a Fandom Thing Pod, except for Twitter which is @Fandom Thing Pod. And you can listen to us everywhere you listen to your podcasts. And remember to catch new episodes of Doing the Thing live on ZARD Radio Station every Sunday from 8 p.m. UK time, and on all podcast platforms from Monday morning. We'll see you next week.